guys, I'm going to be part of the PFL announce team for this Friday. And I was on a call with PFL, and the head of production was on the call. And he told me, as a first-timer, do not tell the audience this is a tournament. Stay away from the word tournament at all costs. And I simply said, why? The reason I asked that is I thought it was a tournament. And I love the idea that it's a tournament from one perspective, which is you, the viewer, understand that. You know what a tournament is. Take the politics out, take all the bureaucracy out, stand on your own, advance on your own, become champion on your own. It's a great thing about the PFL. Well, he answered my question. He said, no, it's not a tournament. There is a playoff. We have a season. We're unlike any other fighting organization. And he said, Chael, you are right. We acquiesce to your point that there's no politics and there's no bureaucracy, and your skills will represent your standing at the end, but it's not a tournament. It's not a straight line bracket. There's preseason. There's during the season. There's qualification. He was just explaining all the differences to me of PFL versus other fight leagues. I loved it. I was in. I loved it and I was in, and enough that I want to come and explain that to you guys. Explain the differences of what you're seeing with this product, which is largely one-fold in that you are going to have a competitive architecture. You're not just going to have the power of the pen and the bureaucracy to decide who the greatest trash talker is, who's got the most followers on Instagram, gets to be on the higher spot, ultimately leading up to your main event. That is different. There's not a lot of sports, and none in this atmosphere, that lives by. I've always resented the sport of boxing, and I resent it from a jealousy standpoint. I resent that it wasn't me, that I didn't know that ahead of time, that I didn't manipulate the system the way, say, Floyd Mayweather did. But you can become the world champion in boxing and not even be the best in your nation. I mean, right? Don't forget what a world championship is. It starts at a small level. You become the best in your city, you get to contend for a state championship. You become the best in the state, you get to contend for a national championship. You become the national champion, you get to contend internationally for a world and or Olympic championship. But you cannot step out of that process. You don't get to go to a national championship without winning your district, your city championship, right? I mean, there's a way to do it, and boxing doesn't have that. So if you become a number one contender, if you're standing opposite Floyd, by example, and Floyd got to handpick his opponents, there was only a couple of times ever that Floyd actually stepped in and fought the right guy. Now, that's not an insult to Floyd or his legacy. Floyd did nothing different than the guys before him. And eventually, throughout time, Floyd did get in there with all the guys. Floyd is the best. Not a commentary on Floyd. I'm pointing out to the idea that he could pick a Jesse Vargas. He could pick a Maidana, who turned out to be a stud, but Floyd didn't know that going into it. He could pick these guys, make them a number one contender, which in the world of sport, you fight for a world title and you don't win it, you were then second. You were the second best in the world if you lose in the Super Bowl. You were second best in the world if you lose in the NCAA finals. You were second best in the world if you lose in the gold medal match of the Olympic Games. It's just not true in boxing. It's straight politics. There is no architecture. I talked to Layla Ali about this. And God bless her, but it was a podcast publicly done. She stated for me her one and only regret in boxing was that she never went through the Olympic Games. She followed that thought to say, because that's the only way in boxing to know if you're truly the best. They called me the best, and I was undefeated. So, but Chael, I know inside that I trained like a professional under the tutelage of my father, Muhammad Ali. And I fought a bar fighter a couple of times. He said, what do you mean by that? What's that expression, bar fighter? Like in wrestling where I come from, we'll call him a fish. Somebody that's not very good, the expression is a fish. You ever take a fish out of water and the fish just flops around? Somebody that's not good at wrestling, we call them a fish. They're out there flopping around. I thought bar fighter was an expression. She goes, no, I trained my ass off, and the promoter brings in some gal from the bar that was willing to do it, that wasn't any kind of a fighter at all. I stopped her in a number of punches in a number of seconds inside of the very first round. I had a whole bunch of fights like this because they thought I was good for a poster, and I would like to know where I stand. I respected that tremendously, but Layla is pointing out and admitting to a problem, as I see it, with boxing. And boxing's not the only one guilty of it. We can get away with it in MMA as well. Perception is reality, and whoever the best is, whoever we shove down your throat and tell you is, only because we don't have a competitive architecture of which the PFL is willing to take the risk and change. I like it. I like it and I respect it, and I wanted to bring it to your guys' attention. I've always thought it was a tournament. I thought that's what you call it. I got smartened up a little bit on playoffs, on season versus preseason. Some of the things that it takes point-wise to find yourself in to that bracket. It was meaningful enough for me that I wanted to draw the distinction and bring it to you guys. And there's some killers that are going to fight on this card. Chris Camozzi, by example. Bubba Jenkins, by example. Bubba has been one of the bigger surprises in all of MMA, and that's all potentially going to change. Bubba got a win over Lance Palmer, which, kind of made everybody stand back and go, hey, this guy's pretty good. But it has been a long rise to success for Bubba, who has been cloaked in success in his entire life. Bubba won an NCAA championship by fall, I might add. And if you'll recall who his opponent was David Taylor. In case you don't know who David Taylor is, David Taylor, as of 3 weeks ago, is now known as Olympic champion. The guy who won the Olympics was pinned in the NCAA finals by Bubba Jenkins, who happens to be fighting this Friday, who's going to be commentated by me.